Hello, and welcome to CMX's In the Loop podcast. In the Loop is our opportunity to spend time with industry colleagues and friends to talk about their businesses, industry trends, and their use of technology to stay ahead of operational challenges. I'm your host, Jim Hardiman, Chief Marketing Officer here at CMX. And in this episode, we spend time with Danielle Williams, Ops Services Manager at Checkers and Rally's Drive-In Restaurants. We learn about her role and the digital transformation journey they've been on for the last 2 years. We also learn that she has some very interesting hobbies. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I think you will too, so thanks for checking us out.
Danielle, hello, and welcome to the podcast. You know, we've had so many great conversations over the year that the finally getting to record that and get together, I've been really looking forward to this. So glad you could do this, and welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. So for our audience, tell us a little bit about you, what your role is, and maybe even talk a little bit about Checkers and Rallies. Tell us a little bit about the brand and what you're known for.
Absolutely. So, again, thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm Danielle Williams, and I am the Ops Services Manager for Checkers and Rallies. And so, what my primary role is, I work in our Ops Services department, and our job is to directly assist any of our restaurants and the operators and the above restaurant management team. That is not limited to just that. That also includes our franchisees if they need any assistance with any of the systems that our department manages, which includes CMX.
Yeah.
And so, it's that's pretty much my day to day. So that's pretty helpful. I'm becoming the subject matter expert quickly
Yeah.
with CMX. But we are primarily known for our double drive-through and for our famous seasoned fries.
Mhm.
Quite delicious, I must say.
Yes.
Um,
We'll talk about Peloton later.
and the use of the Peloton.
Yes.
So, but no, we have been around for 30 plus years now,
Okay.
and we're currently operating over 800 restaurants. Unfortunately, the pandemic did have an effect on some of our locations. We have had to close them down. We are
Mhm.
hoping to reopen them.
Okay.
So that is, something that we're hoping for in the future once, everything gets kind of back leveled out. So.
Okay. And how
um,
long have you been with Checkers?
I have been with Checkers just over 7.5 years.
Wow. So you've seen a lot of
Yeah,
change over time. So I think
absolutely.
if I remember right, you got your start in food safety. Is that right? Is that how you started
I
at
did.
Checkers? Okay. Tell us a
I
little bit
did.
about like what got you to food safety and what transitioned to operations? Like how did that occur over time?
So I had not actually practiced inside the food safety role prior. My primary role was a food safety system specialist. So
Okay.
I was over the system itself, and so I helped manage that third party relationship that we
Hmm.
have and still have with our current partner. And so I would help our users understand the system, walk
Hmm.
them through it. And so that's kind of how I catapulted into this role that I'm currently in.
Okay.
But I've always been over the systems itself.
Okay.
So I guess you could call me more of a system specialist than
Okay.
really in the food safety world or the food safety person.
Hmm.
But I still assist our food safety department in helping them and kind of bridge that gap of how do we incorporate something from the food safety aspect and how do we get the restaurants to actually be able to follow through with that. So I
Okay.
still dabble in that world, but
But
yeah,
your role is much broader now, just beyond that, with all systems and all digital systems in the restaurants, right?
correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes. With the exception of like our delivery and stuff, we have a department that actually
Sure.
manages all of that. But anything that our restaurant users use every day, which is one of the primary tools that we are using in your system. So,
Okay. So
yeah.
so like you said, that it's really the brand's really known for the double drive-through. What's the backstory on Checkers and Rallies? Was it two chains to start?
It was.
Yeah, so tell us a little about that. I've
Yes.
always been curious about that.
So originally, it was Checkers and then the separate of Rallies. And oh gosh, I want to say it was back in the early 90s that Checkers decided to purchase
Okay,
Rallies.
so it was a purchase.
Yes, their concept was similar, similar products, definitely the similar design of the double drive-through, and it just made sense that we partnered up and became Checkers and Rallies.
But
So
they've
we're still
remained.
Rallies on the West Coast. Mhm.
Okay. Is that, yeah,
Yeah.
so it's remained two brands. And so when like a new franchisee comes in, do they have the option between one or the other, or is it all kind of regionally based?
It really depends. So
Okay.
if they're on the West Coast, they are definitely going to be a Rallies.
Okay.
But if they are in primarily a Checkers market,
Hmm.
then they are definitely going to be a Checkers. They don't have the option to be a Rallies.
Okay. Super interesting. Yeah.
But yeah,
So,
so and we had originally toyed with the idea of changing them all over to
mm,
Checkers, and brand recognition
mm,
is key.
right.
The guests that used to visit the Rallies stopped really visiting the Rallies, and they just said,
Wow.
"Okay, we'll change it back to Rallies, so our name."
Yeah.
So
Wow. That's super interesting. Yeah.
yeah,
People get set in their ways, or they have their brand preferences. So,
they
not
do.
I think it's becoming more and more kind of prevalent for some of these companies to be operating multiple brands. But so I guess
Hmm.
you're not totally unique there, and but yeah, it is interesting how people have these preferences for one or the other, and if they have childhood
Absolutely,
memories or whatever along the way, right? So pretty interesting.
that's right.
So obviously, the biggest story over the last 2 years has been the pandemic. Would love to just
Yes.
kind of know what has work life been like for you, for the brand.
Mhm.
Kind of what's been, your experience over the last 2 years, and how are you managing at this point coming through the pandemic?
Absolutely. So the pandemic obviously was a game changer for everyone.
Hmm.
It definitely affected us. Of March of 2020, we made the decision that everyone would start working remotely,
Yeah.
and we really haven't been back in the office since. There are a few people that do choose to go back into the office now, now that we've kind of done a soft reopen, but we
Mm,
are primarily all working remotely. And our company has just determined that we just do a great job. It doesn't really matter where we are, nothing ever stops.
yeah. Yeah.
We keep pushing and we keep providing that support to our restaurants and to our field. And, we do whatever we can to support them because during this entire pandemic, um, you know, they put themselves out there. Our crew members, our management team, they were out there doing everything that they could to serve our guests. And especially whenever we were in lockdowns, we were considered essential. And
Yeah.
so we were a food source, and our employees, put themselves out there, and we protected our employees the best that we could, giving them, modifications to our service windows, our payment methods,
Mm,
made sure that they had the proper mask to wear, the proper hand, gloves to wear, um, increased our, as far as our procedures on keeping everyone safe and the restaurants, sanitized. We were actually very fortunate in that respect. We didn't have a
mhm.
lot of guest facing,
Right.
most of because we didn't have dining rooms.
You don't you
We have a
you don't
very
have
small
many at
portion.
all, right? Yeah. Okay. Just a small
No, yeah,
portion
it's
have
a
dining rooms.
very
Okay.
limited,
Okay.
a very limited amount. So that didn't impact us as great.
Hmm. So, much
Yeah.
like other chains, did you have a bigger shift to takeout? Obviously, takeout through drive-through, but delivery as well. Did you see a big uptick in
We did.
third-party delivery?
We did. I don't know the exact percentage amount that
Hmm.
we actually jumped, but one of the things that we were actually very fortunate with is we had already started rolling out delivery, and
Hmm.
we had already started rolling out what we call our order ahead.
Okay.
So that allows our guests to order ahead through our app or online, and their order is ready to be picked up whenever they get there.
Hmm.
And we also had delivery. So those two impacted our sales tremendously. And we just happened to luck up that, we had already started rolling that out pre-pandemic, and it just we soared after the once we got into the pandemic, and
Right.
unfortunately, you know,
So that was last year.
that was last year.
That was last year, and
Crazy.
we're almost through to 2021. What has this year been look like? I mean, I think what's current in the news, in addition to COVID, is just the impact on supply chain, labor shortages.
Yes.
Kind of what is the last 6 months looked like, for your operations,
Hmm.
and what has Rallies and Checkers gone through, just with what's going on with supply chains and labor shortages. How's that impacted you guys?
Absolutely. We've seen a significant impact as far as the labor challenges.
Hmm.
Supply chain issues we haven't avoided them. But I will give a great shout out to our supply team. Um, they they work tirelessly. They truly do. Our team is constantly, making calls, checking on inventory, seeing what products are running low, what are we safe with, and do we have to make that decision to actually decrease or eliminate an item for a temporary time for us to just on our menus or making any changes in that respect. And it has had an impact on our guests as well. Our
Yeah.
guests come to us because they expect a certain product, and sometimes we're just not able to provide that product. And unfortunately, you know, they don't speak too kindly to it.
Impacts their customer satisfaction. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
truly does. Yes.
Okay. Well, and it impacts from an operational standpoint. So, like in your role with just working with the all things operations within the restaurants, how is that playing out in maybe some of the programs that you're managing, with the CMX platform?
So, as far as the product side of it, we do also use the supply chain side.
Right.
Um, we actually have a separate team that actually manages that. So for myself, I don't currently utilize that platform,
Hmm.
but our other team that does participate in that side, I know it's becoming it's increasing in
Right.
their day to day. I know they're doing everything they can in order to start,
Hmm.
um, getting things on track there.
Substitutions and
So,
yeah, things. Yeah.
absolutely.
But from an impact, like in the restaurants itself, from an operational
Hmm.
standpoint, if if menu items are changing or there's substitutions, is that also impacting some of the operational programs, that you're managing, maybe from a food safety standpoint, or just policies and procedures in the restaurants as those
Yeah.
those menu items change or substitutions happen, or there's just labor issues in general. Yeah.
So it does start impacting us on a training perspective of
Yeah.
using the platform. So I am constantly having to, assist the restaurants in how do I use this, how do I even log in?
Hmm.
Um, or how do I make sure that my checklist was actually completed? Um, so there is a lot more hands-on with the restaurants right now with the completions of their
Yeah.
required checklists and audits. I monitor the system almost all day, every day,
Yeah. Yeah.
to make sure that there's nothing outstanding. Because we do have, if it's not completed and uploaded within the first 24 hours of it starting,
Hmm.
then it goes into an auto deletion. And
Hmm.
on some of our audits, they are required, such as our opening temperature tracking forms,
Yeah.
our shift change tracking forms. So items like that, if they're outstanding and they don't get submitted, typically I wouldn't sit there and go click and submit.
Yeah.
But for right now, I know the restaurants need as much help as they can,
Much
and
assistance.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. So from that standpoint, as far as operations, that's definitely impacted there. We've got you figure we have currently 837 restaurants right now,
Okay.
and then we have over 1,500 users. So, just that alone and the number of audits and checklists that are required in each of the restaurants, and just our field operations as well. Getting everyone to understand those, that's that has definitely been a
Yeah.
challenge in making sure that everyone stays in compliance from a food safety, standpoint. We
Standpoint.
also have, you know, we've got all of those.
Yeah.
So it has an impact us operationally, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
The labor piece has definitely, because we don't have, employees that have that continuous knowledge and the carry on knowledge of how to operate in the system. So
Makes
definitely.
sense. Makes sense. So you guys became a CMX customer kind of, is it January of 2020? So pre-pandemic.
Yes.
So it's been a while
Mhm.
now. Talk to us a little bit about just your adoption of the digital tools and maybe what that impact was when COVID did hit. So the ability to change procedures, to communicate updates. So talk to us a little bit about just the journey that you guys have been on for digital
Mhm.
transformation. And out of all of our customers, I think you guys might even have the most varied different forms and different departments using them for different ways. So would love
Yes.
just to explore that. I mean, I think we gave you a Swiss Army knife and you're just using it. So tell us all the varied use cases
Trying.
and the way you're using the tools today.
Yeah, sure. So I feel like we definitely use it in a more
Yeah.
unique way than a lot of people do.
Yeah.
Um, we we decided that if we could get rid of the use of pen and paper,
Hmm.
then it was easier record keeping. We had more visibility. It wasn't a matter of filling out a piece of paper and trying to fax it in somewhere,
Right.
or trying to make sure that, who got the document, did it get FedExed over, whatever. Um, so, um, one of our main uses that we use, like I just mentioned, our opening temperature tracking forms, all of that used to be done on paper.
Mm.
And so all of our restaurants had to keep a binder because you
Yep.
have to have 30 rolling
Yep.
days. And so we would have our temperature tracking from the opening time to our shift change. And so we have a binder that kept all of that in place. But all of our other daily checklists that we have, we have an opening checklist.
Mm.
We have, the closing checklist. We have, various other checklists that we do. We also utilize it to do an internal audit that is very similar to a health inspection,
Okay.
which is right there along with our third party food safety audit. So we mimic that as well, and
Hmm.
our restaurants do that. But we also utilize it for what we call our serving up wins.
Mm.
And that in the first part of that is a food safety audit. And then the second part of that is our brand standards. So we do that, at least we run on a period base.
Hmm.
And so we do that once a period. And that is done by our above restaurant management.
Above restaurant. Yep.
And then, yep. And then we also have, you know, uh, other various checklists that to see where we're using it as well. We have our franchise business consultants.
Hmm.
They also utilize that for what we call our candidate interview form.
Right.
And instead of that being something that is either pen and paper or you might just take notes, that has we put that into a digital platform so that they could easily, just keep notes, start the form, and
Hmm.
while they were talking to the candidate, they could actually fill in the information while they were talking to them. It gives them a better ability to stay on track of what they're
And
actually
structure.
needing to
Yeah.
capture.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay.
Exactly. And then it's instant feedback. So as soon as that's, completed, the
Hmm.
our franchise operations director gets a copy of it. It also
Hmm.
goes to our development department. And so everyone has the immediate response. And so it's been a tremendous help for them as well.
Yeah.
We also use it on our construction side. We use it as kind of like a construction punch list.
Hmm.
So before we turn the restaurants over from construction to the operations team, we have our construction department goes through and they do a punch list and they
I
make
love
sure that
that.
everything
Yeah.
is completed. So, yeah, we definitely use it in a variety of
I
ways.
love that. Yeah. So are you starting to get requests from other people saying, we want to digitize our process as well? I mean, do you have a line of people looking for Danielle's time at this point?
Well, currently we do have a few. Our marketing
Yeah.
department has reached out as well, and we do a limited time only
Hmm.
items. We have that in there so that we can get some feedback. We so it, and that's beneficial too, because then it
Hmm.
allows us to know how is that working out for the restaurants? Are the restaurants having any issues with the new product? Is it something that we should definitely roll out to
Hmm.
additional markets? Especially if it's just in a pilot process. So it helps us there.
Yeah.
And and we also have other some of our other departments that utilize it from an employee, kind of an employee status
Hmm.
checklist, so they can utilize it in that capacity as well.
So I think you told me one time you're also using it for like building like damage assessment. So if there's
Hmm.
something gets damaged in the building, so they can do an assessment and report that back into your team as well. So tell us a little bit about that.
That's correct. So we decided that the best way for us to be able to capture the information and have photo proof of
Hmm.
any of the items that were damaged, it helps with insurance claims as well. So that it happens right then and there.
Hmm.
Our managers pick up the tablet, they go into the app, they fill out the form. We know exactly what's damaged, we know exactly where it's damaged, and we're able to successfully, get the repairs done
Okay.
as quickly as possible.
Okay,
Hmm.
makes sense. So I know from just kind of taking a peek at every once in a while at your, logging in and taking a look at the data. You guys have acquired a massive amount of data in
Yes.
2 year period of time. So tell us, how are you starting to utilize that data? Kind of what insights,
Hmm.
what does the executive team want to know about the data? Like, how are you using that to like improve what you're doing from an operational standpoint, or even just driving the business?
So what our goal has been is to start doing trend reporting.
Hmm.
How are we doing in our self assessments? How are we doing with maintaining our, just the brand itself?
Yeah.
Um, you know, are we staying in compliance? Is there an open window that we could, utilize more training? Um, that's probably our largest use of the data, is just
Okay.
wanting to know, are we improving?
Hmm.
Have we fallen short in any area? Uh,
Hmm.
you know, do we need to deploy any of our training team? Do we need to hold more training videos? Are people retaining the information? Because if they're not retaining the information, then they're not completing the forms. So
Makes
that's
sense.
one of the things that we've
Okay.
noticed, and starting to use that information. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you talk about learning management. I know you spoke at the Fast Casual Executive Summit a month or so ago, and there was a lot of discussions at that conference around just the interplay between learning management and these types of digital systems. I think it's
Mhm.
interesting just, when you're training people, but then you're also assessing them on a daily basis. It's reinforcing that training, and it's sometimes when you learn something you may not retain it because you can't really apply it in the moment. So can you talk a little bit
Mhm.
about how you see those two systems working together, and how is that kind of
Yeah.
reinforcing behaviors and patterns and routines in the restaurants? Have you seen that those two systems working well together and reinforcing one another?
I think they do.
Hmm.
Honestly, I think there's a lot to the training material and the training videos that we offer all of our
Hmm.
employees. And then, whenever they are looking at the forms and they're reading the forms and they're, I keep harping on the temperature tracking
Yeah.
forms, but I mean, in the restaurant business, those are key.
Key, right.
Um, and so I think it enforces the importance of maintaining proper temperatures and proper
Hmm.
procedures inside a restaurant. And I think, if you're going through those training procedures and those videos, and then you take that information and you actually put it into, you know, day-to-day operations,
Right.
you learned it on the video, but now you're really understanding what it means to
Hmm.
keep the temperature in a certain range and make sure that the equipment is working properly, and understanding the hazards, because inside all of our checklists as well, we have a policy in there, and so it spells out everything that the employee actually needs to know. So
Hmm.
if it's out of compliance, then we have the window pop up that tells them, hey, this is why you don't want it to be out of compliance,
Gotcha.
and
Yeah.
this is why you have to discard the product now. So, we try to continue that education piece from
Mhm.
the learning management system over into the CMX.
Yeah, and we kind of have a philosophy internally at CMX about the saying of measure what matters, and so if you're communicating to employees that these are the things that really matter, and so
Hmm.
we're collecting data and we're analyzing that data because these are the things that are really important to our business, and that just creates the whole continuous improvement and culture around operational excellence or food safety, whatever you're trying to institute through these operational programs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of shifting gears here back to your role and what you do. So tell us a little bit about what's keeping you up at night in your role. So the industry has changed so much in the last year and a half. Kind of like what's keeping you up, and then maybe what's motivating you. What's getting you up in the morning. What's exciting about the industry today?
I kind of think those two go hand in hand.
Hmm.
The things that keep you up at night are the things that make you get up the next
Yeah,
morning and say, "How can I fix
agree,
it?"
agree. Yes.
So, one of the, again, the labor challenges,
Mm-hmm.
and how do we simplify what's going on inside the restaurants? How do we simplify what are their requirements? And that's one of the biggest things that my department with Checkers and Rallies does is we try to simplify the processes as
Yeah.
much as possible because we understand that, our managers are there to serve our guests,
Right.
to make sure that procedures are done properly. They aren't there to sit there and go through a million
Expensive
steps to
forms.
get
Yeah.
one thing done.
Yeah.
And so, we go through everything, and then we go into the restaurants and we actually watch the managers, follow, go through the procedures themselves. I've visited restaurants many a times asking,
Mm.
"What can I do to simplify your life?
Yeah.
What piece of this is too much? Where can we help you?" And and those are the challenges that, like I said, they
Yeah.
go hand in hand in my
Yeah.
world. It's
For sure.
I go to sleep thinking, what can I do? I was just in that restaurant today. What can I do?
Yeah.
And then, the next day I'm like, oh, maybe that'll work.
I heard you talk one time talking about you guys consider the headquarters the restaurant support center, and I think that just really
Yes.
comes out in what you said that you guys are your servant leaders. You're there to serve and help them run better businesses and ultimately serve better guests. It just comes out in everything that you guys do is that you really are the restaurant support center and everything that and how you approach things for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
And
love that.
and we take a lot of pride in that.
Yeah.
We hear the feedback from our restaurant managers and the crew um, multiple times a year. Thank you.
Mm.
You're always there for me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what time of night, day I call you, you always answer. You're always there for me. And that's our role
Mm.
because at the end of the day, if we make their life better, then you know our guest is a happy guest.
Yeah.
If
No,
if
that's
we
really
can
good.
keep their life simplified, then our guest is happy, and that's our end goal.
Yeah, really cool. So just kind of just coming kind of to the end of our time, but I know you're a big Peloton fan.
I am.
Tell me about that. So just from a personal standpoint, what got you into Peloton? And you and I were doing some
Oh,
quick calculations earlier that you've ridden over 3,000 miles already this year on a Peloton. So talk to us about that.
I have.
That's awesome.
So, thank you. Um, so I used to be a runner.
Okay.
I had a back injury and it followed through with a knee injury,
Mm,
double whammy. And unfortunately, after extensive months of physical therapy, it was just not looking really good for me.
yeah.
And so I kept thinking, I've always heard this spin thing is a good idea.
Yeah.
Never took a spin class, was always intimidated by
Yeah.
them. And I just said, why not? Let's give
Okay.
it a try.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, I could sell it.
I think you've become addicted to it at this
But
point. So,
I pretty much have.
Yeah,
It sits in the office with me. So it's right there, and it reminds me every day, hey, whenever you're done working, you're gonna come visit, right?
get on it. Get on it. Yes, that's cool.
So
Um,
yes.
Tell us, there was another fun fact that you shared with while we were getting prepared this for tell us about your other major hobby.
So, I like woodworking. I like to
That's
build
yeah.
furniture. It's something that I like to do. It's I come up with an idea, or else I might see something, and then all of a sudden I'll just
Mhm.
draw it out on paper, and I think, okay, how can I build this for myself instead of going out and
Amazing.
buying it? And so yeah, it's that's
Is,
a little fun.
all right. Is that a second career someday?
I've actually had a few people buy a few pieces of
That is so
furniture from
cool.
me, so
Yes,
it's possible.
that's fun. Well, that is so cool. And, Danielle, thanks for spending time with us. I just love, your story, both, for your personal story as well as the brand. And it's been amazing just to be a partner with you all over the last, going on 2 years now. And I'm so thankful that we got to work together just before COVID, because it was just phenomenal to see, how you just jumped into action and used the tool to really help all your operators. And so we're very honored to be a partner with you, and as a customer, you're one of our most beloved. So thank you for your partnership and
Oh,
continued support.
thank
So
you.
really appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
Yeah, well, thanks for coming on
Yeah,
today, and thanks for spending time with us. Appreciate it.
absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Okay, have a great one. Thanks
All
a
right.
lot.
Thanks. Take care.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this podcast episode of In the Loop with CMX. If you like what we're doing, then please do leave us a review and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube or podcast channels. That way you'll be notified automatically about each new episode as we produce them. You can also be part of our podcast as a guest. Get in touch through our website, where you can also learn more about us, our clients, and the CMX1 EQMS platform. Just go to www.cmx1.com. Thanks again for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next time.